Hello, friends. Continuing with our episodes on strategy. Today, we are going to delve further and understand a little bit more about what strategy is really all about. As I said in the last episode, strategy is one of the most misunderstood and hence most misused words that you would generally find. Very often, what we tend to do, this is what I have noticed in real life, is that we identify some activity as our strategy. And this is far from the truth. An activity is not a strategy. Okay? Strategy is an idea. It's not some physicalness. It's an idea. It's an idea that encompasses your mission, your vision, your goals, and how you are going to achieve the goals. So the activity is a part of strategy, but activity is not the strategy. Okay, so very often we tend to misunderstand this whole thing about strategy. Okay, I have often heard people saying, like I used to say it when I was young. Okay, this time I did well, but I want to do better. It's not up to my expectations. And so the next semester, I want to do much better. And my strategy is going to be that I'm going to study or spend 10% more time to my study than I did in the previous semester. Now, this is not a strategy, because a strategy should ideally encompass what are the variables that are going to be involved. What if something happens? If then, what will you do? It's a whole plan. What I mentioned is a goal. I want to get better grades. And a way I'm going to do it, the activity I will do is to spend 10% more times. In the same way, in organizations, I have very often seen that people say, okay, my strategy is to grow my business by 10%. That 10% is a goal, saying that, okay, this time you did a sale of X. In the next year, you want to do a sale of X plus 10%. Okay, but that is not a strategy. That is a goal. A strategy is something that is long-term and which is something that helps you to achieve far more than just that one goal. And these are the kind of statements that we generally find. And that is why people who use the word strategy so loosely, so indiscriminately, okay, they generally don't know what strategy is. And therefore, when we as laymen hear that all the time, we tend to believe that, okay, that is a strategy. As I said, far from it. That is not a strategy. Okay. So, as I said in the last episode, what is a strategy? A strategy has to answer some questions and consider some facts and the challenges that might come along the way. So, as I mentioned last time, one of the first things about strategy is, why are you here? What is your goal? Why are you here? Why do you exist? And as I think I said last time, or I'm just repeating it in case I didn't, strategy can be about a company, an organization, and also about you individually. Okay, your goal may be to move from a one-bedroom apartment to a three-bedroom apartment. That's your goal. But your strategy has to encompass many things about that goal, and then it becomes a strategy. So why are you here and why do you exist? That's one of the first questions you should ask yourselves when you talk about strategy. And then, of course, what are your goals? Because once you know the goals, once you know the reason for your existence, then you have to find the path that will connect you from where you are today, knowing well and keeping in mind the reason for your existence to achieve that goal that you have. So you will always look at your goal and your strategy with what are the potential advantages of following that strategy, and what are the potential pitfalls, what are the drawbacks that can come to, what are the things that can deter or hamper your progress to achieving that goal. And these variables, good or bad, these variables are the ones that you should list down. And then for each of the variables, you need to do an analysis or a soul searching, really speaking, of what ifs and if then. For each variable, like, okay, I said I want to buy this apartment, and today I'm saying that, okay, considering everything, I will need to spend 5 crores of rupees at the end of 5 years. So I start planning on the 5 crores. But you have to look at it. Supposing the apartment prices go up, and actually at the end of 5 years, it starts costing 10 crores. So that's what if the apartment increases, and if then what are you going to do? Are you going to work harder to get 10 crores? Are you going to reduce your goal from a 3-bedroom to a 2-bedroom? So these are the what ifs and the if thens that you need to address. And for each of these variables and each of the what ifs, you need to format and list down the potential solutions or how you are going to address them when that what if, it's an if, but what if it does really come up? So you have to format and address and find the solutions to most of this, to most, why I would say to all of this what ifs. And then when you do all of this, the resulting document that you will come up with, because you should be noting down everything. You can't remember all the what ifs and all the if thens and everything. So that resulting document that we come out with is essentially your strategy. Yes, you will refine it, you will word it to make it a presentable document, and all of that is great. That's great for a boardroom. But when you are talking of actual strategies, you need to have that document prepared. And that is going to tell you whether you are on the right path for achieving your goals in life or not, and that you have a strategy for it. The goal is not the strategy, but that is your strategy. And coming to this, I have very often been asked when I'm conducting workshops or when I'm talking to people of why a goal is not a strategy. While I explain to them what I just said in the last 3 minutes, I tell them that a goal is a strategy, and it's a great idea to have the goal as a strategy. But just defining a goal is not going to help you achieve it and solve your problem in such a in the world we are in today, which is changing so rapidly, where there's so much uncertainty around so many things. And there are so many things happening geopolitically, politically, in every which way, which are way beyond your control. Okay. So while I tell them that it's a great idea, I always supplement it with the however. It's a great idea. However, if you don't find out the variables that could impact your achieving your goal, if you don't do the what ifs and the if thens for each of the variables that we are talking of, and if you do not do a proper analysis, study the possible scenarios that can come up, then you are not going to be able to reach. And of course, create the map. Sorry, how can I forget that? You need to create a map. That map has to be very, very flexible. Even a strategy has to be flexible. But you need to create the map also so that you can start moving on a pre-planned path. Okay. And two tips I'd like to give you, which I have learned the hard way by being quite a stupid person. The first one, most important one, is do not focus on perfection. Focus on betterment. If you wait to start something when it is perfect, you're never going to get it off the ground. So start with betterment. And that is why you see all this software updates now, version 1, version 1.1, version 2, version 2.01. They don't aim for perfection from day one. So let's remember this. You don't aim for perfection, but you aim for betterment. And as we've all heard, at least I now believe in it truly, and I heard it from one of my mentors saying that perfection is going to be your nemesis. If you aim for perfection, you're never going to get off the ground. There are failed attempts at sending rockets to the moon. But if they didn't undergo that failure and improve on it, they wouldn't have got there. So the same thing is true of creating a strategy. Focus on betterment, not on perfection. Okay. So what are the things that a strategy needs to consider? While we're going to talk in the next session and maybe the session after that on how to create or build a strategy, today I'm giving you the overall this thing without getting into a systematic approach of creating a strategy. So what does a strategy need to consider? Okay, and that's very important because you need to know what you need to think of, what you need to address, what you need to include so that you come out with a good strategy. So besides what we've already mentioned, all about the mission and the vision and the goals and the map and focus on betterment and not perfection and all of that, you have to make sure that your strategy, the plan that you make, the strategy that you make, it's not a plan, sorry, my mistake. The strategy that you make has to be for a sustainable and inclusive growth progress. The company must progress in a sustainable and in a manner in which there is inclusive growth. You need to have a vision beyond the current economic scenario, invariable of what product you are in. Even if you're in something as basic as food, which is going to be a necessity all the time. I'm not talking of things like jewelry or cars or whatever else. There too, you need to have a strategy that goes beyond the current economic scenario. Tomorrow, there could be a situation where people don't have enough money to eat. Okay, so if they're having a burger today, which costs maybe say 20 rupees, I'm throwing numbers, they will come down to a vada pav tomorrow, which costs maybe 5, 7 rupees, 10 rupees. Okay, so your strategy needs to take care of these kind of scenarios. If the economy improves, then they don't want a plain burger, they want a burger with cheese. Whatever it is. So you need to think about it and you need to look at scenarios beyond the current economic scenario. Okay, and your strategy has to be a well-determined. What I mean is determined, you have to be 100% convinced on the choice of growth that you are taking. And any strategy needs to embrace and practice innovation at every stage. That's what will give you the edge over all the other competition. Okay, so now to be a great strategist, there's one thing that you need to cultivate, and that is the strategic thinking skills. A lot of people say that I'm not a strategic thinker, but that just means that you haven't developed that skill. Fortunately for all of us, this skill is something that you can develop and cultivate over time, of course. Nothing happens overnight. So this is the single most important skill, not only in personal life, but more so in your professional life. Because having a strategic thinking skill is going to give you a leap that you would not ever have imagined. It will give you a leap in your career. The day you demonstrate to your team, to your bosses, to your leaders that you are capable of thinking strategically. And it automatically will set you apart from the team. So there is going to be where you become the forefront, the forerunner, so to say. It will establish yourself, your credentials as a visionary, because you're thinking so many steps ahead and looking at the different variables with the what ifs and the if thens being addressed. So it will make you a visionary, and it will make you the person to whom people will go when they want to see what can happen in the future with a product, with a service, or of the business in general. Let me give you an example. A great product manager needs to have some skills. What are the skills? He needs to be having all the information about the product. He needs to be assimilating and analyzing data. He needs to be having the skills that are required, or the aptitude that is required to prioritize all the data, all the agendas that he has, and what activities he should put in which sequence, and has to manage the outcome of the shop floor immaculately. And this can make you a great product manager. However, if you develop the skill of strategic thinking, you move from great to being exceptional. You will then become an exceptional product manager, because that single skill is going to give you the ability, and by following and practicing that skill, you are going to be able to have a long-term vision for your product. And therefore, while you build in certain features right now, which you may not activate, you will start thinking of the product saying, I'm going to need this feature, and therefore make provisions so that it can be inserted and implemented in a jiffy. So this is what strategic thinking will do for you. Okay. So to make a good strategy, you need to be flexible. You need to be very clear about your vision, mission, and goals. You need to be singularly focused. You need to be agile. You need to be resourceful. Because what ifs, if thens, there may not be any standard solution for certain what ifs. So you need to be resourceful. It has to be inclusive of innovation. I cannot emphasize that more. In fact, my tagline for the longest time has been innovate or perish. Yes, that's what I truly believe. Be risk aware. And that's why you need to study the variables and do the what ifs and if thens. And be well defined in your goals. And formalize that definition so that you don't forget it and you don't ever miss the real aim for what you are there for. And what is strategy not? Strategy is not a means to an end, because there is no end in any business. There is an end in the project, and that project is a part of a strategy. So the strategy cannot have an end, just like your business cannot have an end. You finish one project, you're going to move on to the next. You need to keep growing. So it's not a means to an end, but it's a long-term process of learning, improving, bettering yourself, as I said, learning, improving, and moving from one goal to the other, all with a clear-cut mission and vision in mind. It is a set of goals. It's not one particular goal. It could be a set of goals running simultaneously. So that's what strategy is. It is not a 3 or 5 year business plan. That's a business plan. What we call it that. A strategy is, as I said, it's a very, very long term, 15, 20, 30 years. I understand when we think of strategy and we took off such a long time. Today, when we can hardly focus for 3 to 5 minutes on something that we are doing, it's a big challenge. But yet, strategy has to be about that. Okay. It's a set of aspirations that you have individually or as a company. It's a list of the initiatives that you will take, and a list of the intentions that you have. in an organization as well as personally, as I said, you want to buy an apartment from 1 bedroom to 3 bedroom, there has to be a plan to increase revenues. And in an organization, revenues are even more important, because if you don't have revenues, you will stop innovating is the first knee-jerk reaction. I believe that when you are having trouble, you should innovate more, but that's the way industry runs today. And it's not about mergers and acquisitions. Yes, you will do mergers and acquisitions because you need to amplify your resources, to substantiate them, to have something else that is going to collaborate with your existing resources, even if it's short term. So it can be a merger of types, a strategic merger, so to say. Wrong use of the word strategic, but it's about implementing resources. And to make sure that you get to your goal, whatever resources you need, if you don't have, you need to acquire them either as an organization itself or through mergers, acquisitions, and collaborations with different other organizations that have that skill. So this is what it should be all about. Next week, as I said, next session, as I said, we are going to look at how to create and build a strategy. In the meantime, do go through today's episode and yesterday's episodes again, if necessary, so that we start and understand better when we talk of things the next time. Thank you and have a great evening.